What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we're going to be previewing some more teams, getting into the weeds a little bit with some G6 teams, a newcomer to Division One college football at the FBS level. But if you like this content, before we get started, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, or even just leaving a comment. Something small can really help boost a stream like this as we do these very early in the morning, trying to hit every Tuesday and Thursday for the foreseeable future, maybe even adding in an extra day if we can get some of the work done ahead of these streams. But I think that's it for housekeeping. Pretty easy intro to get started. So we can dive right in with Utah football. If you're watching this live, very much appreciate all of you. If you're watching this after the fact, thank you very much for being here as well. But let's get set up and then we'll dive right into this. So, Utah football 2026 season. A little bit of change, more than normal for a typical Utah offseason. We're going to start with 2025 and then look ahead to the upcoming season. So here's a little bit of where Utah sits with the recruiting numbers and the program as a whole. This team's fresh off an 11-2 season. Basically, they were right there with a lot of the powers in the Big 12, including Texas Tech and BYU. Those are actually the two losses that this team took. Texas Tech, they lost 34-10. BYU was a close one, 24-21. They had a 35% post-game win expectancy for those of you that were a little curious. They did play one additional game against Kansas State, which finished with a score of 51-47, where Utah had a 25% post-game win expectancy. So should have taken a loss, but they did not. And this was a good bounce back season for Utah. The year prior, they were 5-7, which was the first time this team was below 500 since 2013. We're not including the COVID season. So overall, a good bounce back spot. But now we're going through a coaching change. Longtime DC Morgan Scalley takes over for Kyle Whittingham, who took the Michigan job. The coaching change happened before Whittingham took the Michigan job, so this was kind of the expected outcome for Utah, regardless of the Whittingham decision. And Scalley's been with the program since 2016. He's been the heir apparent forever now. He's inexperienced as a head coach, but as the heir apparent for so long, you'd have to think he's learned from Whittingham. Utah's probably going to maintain their identity. And one other thing, this promotion coincides with some larger NIL changes for Utah that we'll get into as they get into the private equity space. But new look for this team. OC, Kevin McGivens, is going to take over. Jason Beck followed Whittingham to Michigan. And the offense was pretty unique last year, so curious to see what McGivens does. He previously coordinated Utah State's offense in 2025. He was with San Jose State before that. And this was a fast offense for Utah State. A play every 23.8 seconds. That's pretty clearly above average. They also passed 51% of the time. I don't think Utah is going to specifically do this. Last year's Utah offense was leading the country in usage of a sixth offensive lineman. They were passing 40.5% of the time, a very run-heavy offense. But a couple things that may translate. Utah State did a lot of 2RB stuff. They had a ton of creative personnel packages, which Utah has kind of been at the top of the country the last few years doing that. Now, Utah was still 18th in total offense. So there's a lot to live up to in year one with McGivens as OC. As far as defense goes, you have Colton Swan taking the job. He was promoted internally, previously coached linebackers for this team from 2019 to 2025. I'm sure it's going to be a collaborative process. Your old DC is now your head coach. But Utah's defense has dropped a little bit over the last 2 years. They finished 50th in efficiency. They need to take a step forward back to kind of the 2021 season, stuff like that. The job in general, it looks like this is going to be a competitive job in the Big 12. A lot of Big 12 teams have kind of just fallen behind Texas Tech because they weren't investing as much in the program. Utah's average recruiting ranking over the last 3 years is 42nd. Their transfer ranking over that span is 39th. However, we did just see them. They basically recruited their best class in 3 years, 27th. And that's kind of because of this private equity they're getting involved in. They were the first team to get involved in this sort of space. Basically, it's just they're taking money in order to help NIL, recruiting, transfers, retention. So it's no surprise this is the season we see Utah taking a step forward. There is still a gap to be cleared between them and like a Texas Tech, but that's at least worth mentioning. As far as retention goes, you undergo a coaching change. Whittingham took a ton of the best players from this team and brought them over to Michigan. So I wouldn't be too alarmed seeing these retention numbers on the screen. Utah typically is not looking at like 40% from 2024 or even 2/3 of their 2025 class. That's all they've retained in just 1 year. Typically, it's going to be a bit better than that. And I would expect this to get a little bit back towards normal numbers in the future. But that's where we sit kind of the program as a whole. This is an ascending job in the Big 12, according to all reports. As far as the roster goes, we'll bring you behind the scenes now. We have our Google Doc, our handy Google Doc. You can access this if you want in the link of the video below. But so here's Utah. We'll start with the quarterback position at the top. Devin Dampier returns. He's 5'11", 210. Had a good season last year, 62.5% completion percentage, 7.3 yards per attempt, 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 20 big-time throws, and 11 turnover-worthy plays. Only took 8 sacks, which was a supreme pressure-to-sack ratio. And he rushed for 835 yards. That's 5.7 yards per carry. This is just an absolutely elite dual-threat quarterback. And with the way Utah played in the positive game script, you didn't force him to be a drop-back passer, which suits his skill set, suits the offense. And if that's what you're going to make him do, Dampier is going to be an elite option in that kind of an offense. More importantly, I guess not more importantly, but important, Bird Ficklin, as a freshman, he came in and was an elite rusher right away for this offense. I couldn't believe what Bird Ficklin actually did on the ground. 513 yards in barely over 200 snaps. He had 10 rushing touchdowns. Even as a passer, only threw it 36 times, but 3 touchdowns, no picks, 2 big-time throws, no turnover-worthy plays. I imagine Ficklin's going to have packages in this offense. And what backup quarterback would you rather have over Ficklin for this offense? This is one of the best QB rooms in the country when you consider having Dampier at the top and Ficklin being your backup. This team was already 30th in passing efficiency last year. We have the quarterback room as a whole, which includes Ficklin as a top 10 unit in the country. And it's clearly the best quarterback room in the Big 12 now that Texas Tech is undergoing whatever it is with Brennan Sorsby, whether he's active or not, all depending on the scandal that's going on there. But as it currently stands, expecting Sorsby out, Utah's QB room right at the top of this conference. Going to the pass catchers, this unit, it was actually pretty good last year, even though they were a very run-heavy team. They lose their leader, Ryan Davis, to graduation, but they have a lot of the component parts back, including Larry Simmons, a boundary receiver, former Southern Miss player. Only 280 yards, but again, you funnel 725 of the limited passing yards to Ryan Davis. There's just not a lot going around. But an experienced perimeter player there, 77% of the time he was out wide. You get back to Tobias Merriweather, former Cal and Notre Dame transfer, whose main problem has just been injuries at this point. He's another boundary receiver. And they go to the transfer portal, bring in Braden Pegan from Utah State, Ricky Johnson from Mississippi State, and Kyrie Scholes from San Jose. Pagan is a pretty good recruit. He originally was with UCLA. Couldn't really play there, so has to transfer down to the Mountain West, but has 920 yards on 60 catches, crosses the 2.0 yards per route threshold, which is kind of the marker we use for a productive player. Anything above 2 yards per route is very good. Another perimeter receiver, 87% of the time. Ricky Johnson, 6'2", another perimeter body, a redshirt sophomore, only has 5 career catches, but a decent recruit coming from the SEC. And then Scholes, the San Jose State transfer, originally came over via JUCO, goes to San Jose State, 60 catches, 785 yards, another perimeter receiver. And if you want to look at depth pieces, Creed Whitmore is a former 4-star. He should play a few snaps here and there. Nate Johnson's the former quarterback that they use as a Swiss Army knife. You'll see him in the backfield. You'll see him out wide. A lot of creative packages with him. This wide receiver room's not bad. It currently ranks 50th nationally, 8th in the Big 12, with some upside to even climb a little bit higher if players like Pagan can make the jump from G6 all the way up to Power 4 conference. And then when you get to tight end, this room does lose J.J. Buchanan. He's one of the players stolen from Utah over to Michigan. And they lose a few players that rotated in and out. Dallin Bentley was a 7th-round draft pick. But they do get back Hunter Andrews, who was actually playing ahead of both Bentley and Buchanan before he got injured. He only appeared in 4 games, 10 catches, and he's so dynamic as a playmaker, they rushed him 13 times. He was lining up everywhere in the formation. He was a good blocker, and that was all as a redshirt freshman. Now he's a redshirt sophomore. It's a very young player and ascending player as well. They also have a lot of depth pieces back. Sion Motuapuaka is back. Semi Tulanga is back. Both of them played a few snaps here and there. Pretty average. And if one of them can't make the jump, those are younger players, sophomores. You do add a couple lower level transfers kind of as a backstop. Noah Benny is from Weber State. Will Money from Oklahoma State. Neither of them particularly good. Benny was a 54th percentile producer in the FCS. And Money only played in 4 games last year. He's a smaller player, 230 pounds, profiles more as a receiver. But position currently ranks 52nd nationally, 10th in the Big 12. I think that's probably their floor, just considering really we're depending on Andrews returning from the injury. And I kind of buy what he showed in the 4 games last year before he got hurt. Being the focal point of an offense that had so many creative players, dynamic players on offense, him playing above them through the first 4 games, I think that's an indicator we should be buying stock in the tight end room for Utah. Offensive line, this is by far my biggest question with the team. There's no way around it. You lose basically your entire starting group, highlighted by a pair of first-round NFL tackles in Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu. That's going to be tough to replace. So now your most experienced tackle candidate is Zeru Williams, who is a big 6'8", 305-pound prospect, played 265 snaps through 4 years. I think he's actually been okay when he's been on the field. It's just kind of hard to overcome Lomu and Fano, 2 first-round tackles. But that's your first place to start. From there, they've actually recruited tackle very well, and that includes this incoming class where they took a 5-star Kevin Obot, who maybe needs to gain a little bit of weight. He's 6'5", 295, but he'll have the summer to hopefully put something on. He should probably start right away. But if there's not, Matali Benjamin's another 6'7" freshman prospect, a 4-star. They have a 4-star redshirt sophomore and Isaiah Garcia, who hasn't played yet. They bring in a couple low-level players. Cedric Jefferson from Montana State. He was a 1-year starter in the FCS, but 62nd percentile production in the FCS. The ceiling of tackle is going to come down to these young players that need to ascend. And having a 5-star, you should be pretty optimistic about this position. Guards, they have a little bit of returning experience. Solatoa Moea, who is 336 snaps, is back. Roger Alderman, 134 snaps. Keith Olson, 295 snaps. And Moea has actually played 600 over the last 2 years. He's actually filled in a lot at tackle, but as a pass blocker, he's someone that could make sense at guard. Alderman and Olsen probably going to be a little bit deeper on the 2 deep, looking mainly backups, I would guess. But this group wasn't particularly good last year with Mokafisi and Togai. It was a weaker position group for them. I think you have the chance to at least maybe remain constant, if not improve a little bit, considering there is a bit of experience at the guard position. Center is going to be tougher to fill. Jaron Kump is gone. He was awesome. Probably looking at Alex Harrison. He played a little bit, only allowed 2 pressures, pretty decent run blocker. They did bring in Isaiah Kema, who could maybe play anywhere in the interior. He comes over from Ohio State. He was a 3-star who just got blocked in that unit that recruits basically 4 and 5 stars on the interior offensive line. So as a 3-star, probably weren't likely to see the field. Coming over to Utah, the path is at least a bit more wide open. But basically what this gives us, an offensive line that currently projects 62nd nationally, 12th in the Big 12, which would be a pretty big downgrade from last year's unit. I think this makes sense. That unit was 9th in pass blocking, 59th in run blocking. Again, lost every starter, including 2 first-round NFL draft picks. It's just going to be hard to live up to that. 62nd is probably the floor of this unit, but it's still a group that I would be shocked if they lived up to last year's ceiling. Going to running back, this position should be a strength for Utah. You have Wayshawn Parker back. It was a deep unit last year, and Parker led the group. He's a former Washington State transfer. He's been on the field since he was a true freshman. He's 5'10", 205, and he gives you good efficiency numbers. He's decent in the pass game. They don't throw a lot to their running backs. They had 13 catches there, averaged 6.8 yards per carry, forced 49 missed tackles. The only problem was 3 fumbles. Clean that up, should be capable of handling pretty big workload. Also bring back Daniel Bray. He flashed a little bit as a true freshman, 6.8 yards per carry. Steven Chavez Soto comes over for San Jose State. A bit of a surprise. He was a player that was not initially expected to play much last year, but San Jose State lost their top 2 backs, so he contributed 448 yards, 5.1 yards per carry. This is going to be an awesome rushing attack. They rank 29th in the country. They rank 3rd in the Big 12. They're also going to utilize a ton of QB stuff. Maybe you see some Ficklin and Dampier on the field together at times. You probably still see some of the 6-0 line or at least 2 tight end stuff. This offense is going to be dynamic in the run game, and a lot of that comes down to what they have at the individual running back positions. Now, getting to defense, there's also a lot of turnover on this side of the ball. Starting with the edge group, I mean, there was a little bit of a step back last year to begin with. They ranked 87th in run defense, 43rd in pass rush. They lose Logan Fano. He was a UDFA. And they lose John Henry Daly to Michigan, another stud player stolen by Whittingham. They do get back Lance Holtzclaw and Cash Dillon. Both were above 300 snaps last year. Holtzclaw originally came over from Washington, had 18 pressures, but he was better in run defense. And then Dillon, kind of the same thing, only 10 QB pressures, another better run defender. Neither of them are huge, both around 250 pounds, but that held up for the most part in this conference. And they do bring in some reinforcements. Ethan Day from North Texas, he was a good pass rusher, 250 pounds, but 30 pressures in the American. That was solid. And kind of a wild card here is Paul Fitzgerald, who's basically just been banged up the last 2 years. He actually had 700 snaps with Utah State in 2023. He's had a little bit of problems getting on the field. The jump from Utah State to Utah is important, but also injuries have just contributed to kind of the rotational role in the limited time we've seen him on the field. Interior group struggled a little bit, but they lose 3 contributors. Jonah Leo's at Michigan now. Aliki Vamahi graduated. Dallas Vadakahi's on Penn State now. You do have 2 players back with some snaps. Carson Kafusi, Pupu Sepulona, both of them 3 stars. Now they're in their sophomore seasons. Kafusi's 305, pretty good run defender. Sepulona, 298. He's also better in run defense. He actually didn't have a single pressure. But you have reinforcements coming in Jerry Moe from San Jose State, Jamal Wallace from Tennessee, and Lucas Samsula from Wyoming. Moe was pretty effective on 213 snaps as a freshman with San Jose State, but 280, probably going to have to gain some weight. Wallace, formerly a JUCO product, tried to go to Tennessee, only got on the field for 108 snaps. This might be more his speed. And Samsula at 306. He was average on 344 snaps as a freshman with Wyoming. A good run defender. He'll have to make the jump here, but that was a pretty promising start. The defensive line as a whole ranks 54th nationally and 12th in the Big 12. I do have some concerns with this unit. It's a lot of lower level players, G5 players, or just players that are young or coming off an injury. This position has not been recruited as well as some other positions on the team, nor have they developed a lot of players at this position over the last 2 years. So this is a major question. The trenches on both sides of the ball for Utah, probably my biggest questions on the team, which I don't think you'd say that a lot about Utah teams of the past. Going to linebacker, some turnover at this position as well. Lander Barton and Lavani Damuni both gone, graduated. Jonathan Hall does return. He was a full-time starter last year and a really good player moving forward. Good run defense numbers, 23 pressures. He did struggle in the pass game slightly, but as long as you can keep him out of coverage, led the team in tackles. This should be a solid place to start. They also get back rotational snaps from Trey Reynolds and Elijah Ellis. Reynolds was also better moving forward, good as a blitzer. He did only allow 2 catches, but didn't play too much there. Ellis was more of a player used sparingly, but flashed here and there. And they also have back a sophomore 4-star in Cyrus Polu, who actually had a good bowl game from Utah. So a little bit of optimism at the linebacker position. We have this unit ranked 10th in the Big 12, largely due to inexperience, but I think there's a ceiling here that maybe wouldn't have been realized without some of these younger players, highly recruited players. The secondary is turning over a lot. There's no way around this. Basically, you're losing 2 of your top 3 corners. Blake Cotton graduated and Smith Snowden's on Michigan now. You know, Michigan picking over like your top 3 or 4 players that didn't go to the NFL. They do return a hybrid kind of slot safety player in Jackson Benny, 6'2", 190. He's a 2-year starter, and he's been elite. Allowed just 23 catches last year, had 4 INTs and 4 PBUs. He's going to be awesome wherever he lines up. Pretty useful Swiss Army knife for this defense. Elijah Davis is also back. He has 2 years of starting experience, more on the average vein. He was allowing 330 yards, 3 touchdowns last year. And he took a little bit of a step back, less ball production, 2 picks, 1 PBU. And they bring in some corners that are interesting and will probably challenge him. The main one is James Chenault from South Florida. He got hurt last year, but allowed 24 catches for 253 yards, 2 interceptions, 2 PBUs. Another potential option is Elijah Reed from Akron, who's a big corner, 6'3", 200 pounds. He was elite in the MAC, only 205 yards allowed, 2 interceptions, 3 PBUs. Other depth pieces include J.C. Hart and Rock Caldwell. Hart started his career with Auburn, hasn't played a ton. Same thing with Miami, Ohio product, Rock Caldwell, but he projects more as a depth piece. And then when you get to safety, again, Benny's probably going to play some of this, but Utah might be a little bit more flexible at safety because they're getting back some injured players. Nate Ritchie was a former 4-star, hurt 5 games into the year. Rabbit Evans only made it 6 snaps into the year. Both of those players were projected to start or at least play important rotational roles. Now, they're both coming off season-ending injuries, which adds some volatility to the picture as well. We're factoring that in. But if all that comes together, that is immediately 3 players you can play at the safety position, which doesn't even include Nate Tillman, who got on the field for 184 snaps because of injuries. They added a former Oklahoma 4-star in Marcus Wimberly. He hasn't played a snap yet, but 4-star recruit, that should fill out this unit relatively well. Utah's secondary has a lot of questions. They currently rank 73rd nationally, but there is a ceiling to be much, much higher if the injured players can regain form quickly. The only thing is, like Nate Ritchie and Rabbit Evans didn't have a lot of experience prior to injury, so we'll see. It still remains a question. Special teams, they returned their kicker, who was pretty good last year, Dylan Curtis. He missed 3 extra points on 71 attempts. He was 11 of 15 on field goals, but all his misses came from distance, and he did hit 2 of 3 50-yard field goals. So there's some pretty decent upside in the kicking game as well. We'll kind of give you a full picture of what this looks like for Utah as a team, just looking at a graph and kind of what to expect for this team. So, position group overall much stronger on offense. Quarterback, we have this at the top of the country. Running back, we have this towards the top of the country as well. And then the defense, this is where there's a lot of questions. Their win total currently sits at 8.5 wins. It's projected over in the market, juice 140 to that direction. We have this at 7.94, which shows a little bit of value on the under. Probably not something that is going to be worth taking. But here's how the schedule gets broken down and how we get to 7.94 wins. Non-conference should be relatively easy for this team. You play Idaho, who is a really good FCS team, but I mean, doing FCS projections, those teams have just gotten ravaged year over year. Basically, what that means is you can have the best FCS team in the country, but the Power 5, the Power 4, the G6 are coming and pillaging your roster every single year. So even that is a little bit tough. Arkansas is the worst team in the SEC. Utah gets that game at home. And then they play Utah State to round out their non-conference. From there, conference schedule is not too bad for this team. They're favored in almost every single game outside of road trips to Boulder in Arizona, according to our projections. And Colorado, if you're interested in seeing their roster breakdown and why we're a little aggressive on them, that's on the channel. But even though we're a bit aggressive on Colorado, they are still relying on a redshirt freshman QB. Depending on how Colorado looks early in the season, you could see that line flipped entirely by the time Colorado comes. Well, they're going to their building, but by the time you play Colorado, they could potentially be favored. Now, Houston's a really good team. Houston will have to come to your building, so that's more of a coin flip game. And then Arizona is an awesome team returning a lot of production this year. That's on the road, so that's a tough spot. But those are your three toughest games. With that said, you still do have some pick'ems. BYU comes to your building. That's not going to be easy. TCU's a team that's kind of right in this hodgepodge of teams just below Texas Tech. Even Cincinnati's not too far away from that. That's a tough road trip, traveling pretty far to head out there. So you're seeing a lot of coin flip games in this conference. The only two games you're like very clear over 75% to win are Kansas and West Virginia, your two bottom feeders. So although this is not the most difficult schedule in the Big 12, there's still enough coin flip games that really give me some pause. And when you're looking at a win total like Utah that's predicated on winning, a half dozen coin flip games, I think I'd rather just take them week to week. And there's probably going to be some pretty good spots to hit them this year, including Arkansas early in week 2. I'm really down on Arkansas, so interested to see where that line comes out in the market. Haven't seen any look-aheads for it yet. But if you're ever interested in this information, we have projections for every single team, including what you're seeing on the screen. So that's win totals across college football, spreads for every single game. You also can take a look at the depth charts for every team if you'd like. Those are available as well. All of that is in our Discord. The link is in the description, and it is $50 for our summer guide, giving you all of that plus player projections for best ball. The Discord gives you access to an awesome community that's talking college football really around the clock, and I'm in there 24/7 if you are interested. But yeah, let's check the chat. Matt, why so early from FB Gotti? Truth is, I live in a bad part of Milwaukee. It is really loud here. Motorcycles and police officers are going around the street 24/7 during the day. This is the quietest time in my neighborhood. So kind of boxed into recording at 6 a.m. unless you want to deal with sirens throughout the video, which I would really prefer not to do. So kind of a weird reason, but that is the truth. The neighborhood is just too loud to really record any other time of day. But let's continue onward. Who is our second team today? James Madison. Okay, this is going to be a really fun one. James Madison coming off the college football playoff and undergoing a coaching changes to sour Billy Napier coming in. All right, should be set up. James Madison, 2026, coming off a college football playoff appearance, losing their head coach, bringing in Billy Napier, and looking to run it back. Here is where James Madison currently sits as a program. This is a team, obviously, with a lot of success going from Curt Cignetti and then to Chesney. They finished 12-2 last year. Their losses were to Louisville and then to Oregon in the college football playoff. All their regular season wins were definitive. There was nothing in this body of work that suggested they should have lost another game or something like that. It was a good G5 schedule. The Sun Belt is a tough conference. Overall, great schedule for this level of play, just very weak for a college football playoff team. And we saw that evidenced by the beatdown they took in the first round. So now Chesney's gone. He takes the UCLA job. You bring in Billy Napier, who just left Florida with a 22-23 record on his way to getting fired. But Billy Napier's had a lot of success in the Sun Belt. He was coaching Louisiana from 2018 to 21. They had 3 straight double-digit seasons under Napier before he took the job in the SEC. I mean, this is the only concern I have with that is now this is the second major coaching change you've made in 5 years. It's just a lot of turnover for James Madison, but ultimately Napier, he has his critics. I've kind of been a slight Billy Napier supporter over the years. We'll see what he can do in his second stint in the Sun Belt. Cam Aiken's the OC. He was previously with ETSU in the FCS. Prior to that, he was an Ole Miss analyst. This offense, even with ETSU, you can very much tell he comes from that Lane Kiffin tree. Up tempo. They were at 23.3 seconds per play last year. 43.5% pass rate. So very much looks like Ole Miss. Average over 30 points per game. A lot to live up to. James Madison was 31st in offensive efficiency last year. The DC, Robert Bala, he follows Napier from Florida. He was the co-DC last year. Previously coached linebackers for Washington. James Madison was 8th in total defense. So this is just a ton to live up to. And as far as talent acquisition goes, like where does this job rank in the Sun Belt? They're basically a middle-of-the-pack talent acquirer in the Sun Belt. 98th in recruiting over the last 3 years, behind only Arkansas State, Troy, South Alabama, App State, Louisiana, Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina, and Georgia State. So you can see like recruiting not the best for James Madison, but they are 66th in that span in the transfer portal. That's the best in the Sun Belt. Merge recruiting and transfer together, you kind of get this middling job in the Sun Belt. Retention, this is another one affected by coaching changes. 59% of 2025, 54% of 2024. I'm not going to lie. Chesney pillaged this roster on his way out. I mean, half this team's playing for UCLA now. Previously, when Cignetti left, the same thing happened with Indiana. Overall, it's a pretty good job. But let's go to the roster and take a look at what we can expect this year, because there's without a doubt a lot of change. So, quarterback. There's a battle at hand. I do not know who wins this job. The main candidates are going to be Camden Coleman. He's a Richmond transfer. He was on the team last year. Arrington Maiden from Memphis. J.C. Evans, another incumbent, or Davi Belfort from UCF. Big shoes to fill with Alonzo Barnett heading to Central Florida. Coleman's probably the favorite. He's 6'3", 223, took a red shirt last year. He was pretty good in the FCS. Actually, really good. He had 99th percentile production in the FCS with Richmond prior to coming over. He's somewhat mobile, 4.5 yards per carry on 338 yards. Passing stats, a little bit underwhelming, 8.3 yards per attempt, but 11 big-time throws, 7 turnover-worthy plays. I think it's going to be him, but Maiden is a pretty decent player as well. He was a good recruit with Memphis. He's also huge, 6'3", 221. Now a redshirt sophomore, some functional mobility, but only 43 snaps. J.C. Evans, another in-house guy, 6'5", 223. Very limited snaps for him. The only player that kind of looks different is Belfort, who's 5'11". He would be a surprise if he starts. But because this room is so unproven, we currently have James Madison currently ranking 93rd in overall QB ranks, 8th in the Sun Belt. There's just a lot to come together, including just who wins this battle in the fall. As far as pass catchers go, depleted room, no surprise. A lot of these players are at UCLA, including Landon Ellis, Wayne Knight. He was their third leading receiver, actually, despite playing running back. Sanchez graduated. I mean, they lost basically the top 4 guys. So you move to Braden Wisłowski as your top receiver. He played on the team last year, formerly of Memphis. He caught 26 passes. Yards per route was solid, above 2, but slot receiver with limited production. He was in the slot 81% of the time. You're probably looking at transfers the rest of the way here. Noah Grievous from VMI comes in. He was an 82nd percentile producer in the FCS, 1.8 yards per route. Another slot receiver, so already redundant with Wisłowski. Kylan Billio comes in from LSU. 4-star that has barely played, but not a lot of recruits that look like him on the roster. He's 6'3", 193, probably plays the boundary. Then you get Micah Matthews from Virginia Tech. Redshirt freshman 4-star. I mean, he's 6'2". He's probably going to play the boundary. I would immediately expect Billio and Matthews on the outside, the 2 former 4-stars, with some combination of Wisłowski and Grievous in the slot. Depth isn't too bad, though. Zeron Collins, former Tusculum transfer, he played 225 snaps last year. Dylan Williams took a redshirt last year. He was actually pretty productive in 2024 as a true freshman. Just decided to sit out last year and elect to redshirt because it was so crowded. Michael Scott played 155 snaps. A couple deep transfers include Jeremiah Harrison from East Tennessee, an 82nd percentile producer in the FCS as a freshman, but didn't hit enough snaps in our threshold markers to really project him any further moving forward than we already did. Corey Scott's a West Florida transfer, didn't play a lot, so There are some options here. I think just the high-end talent is really going to come down to those 4 stars. They currently rank 4th in the Sun Belt, 81st nationally. They have room to potentially be a better unit, but it's all going to depend on what you get out of the former 4 stars. The Sun Belt just doesn't have a lot of guys that look like that, so I'm tentatively optimistic. Tight end, you lose Dakota to Florida. You lose Josh Pfeiffer to UCLA. You just don't have a lot of experience now that those 2 guys took P4 jobs. Probably looking at Cole Keller from ETSU playing the most. Caught 22 passes last year. He was a good blocker, 66th percentile producer in the FCS. He's 240 pounds, so definitely has the size. But I'm just not really sure where they go from there. They had 2 other transfers. Katie Mosley from Howard. He was a 33rd percentile producer in the FCS. Probably not a real option. Thatcher Miller comes from Westchester, a D2 school. Who knows? I mean, you're probably just going to see incumbent freshman 3-stars, redshirt freshman 3-stars, Brian Natt and Ethan Gorella play more. 2 lighter body players that didn't get on the field a ton, but now in their second season, you'd hope there's some development. They do have a walk-on and Ryder Post, but this is just a tough tight end room to rely on right now. We have them projected 114th nationally and 12th in the Sun Belt. I wish they'd done a little bit more, just kind of the bottom line. Offensive line, you lose 5 of your top 6. A lot on UCLA. Carter Sweezy, Riley Robel, both on UCLA. Joe Simmons is on Auburn. McMurtry and Toner graduated. Only your center's back. And he was good. Zach Greenberg's a good center, solid across the board, only 13 QB pressures. But that anchors your middle. Where are you going everywhere else? Tackle's probably going to be Daniel Michelle from FIU or Caden Massey from Kansas State, or both. 2 good-sized players that just don't have a lot of experience. Massey's yet to play. Michelle played 454 snaps at a below-average level in Conference USA. Maybe you see Deacon Rawls play more. He had 159 snaps last year. Griffin Hart at 78. Those are kind of incumbent players. Low-level transfers like DJ Fox from River Falls and Josh Manecki from Army come in. River Falls is a tiny, tiny school in Wisconsin. Shout out Wisconsin, but I don't know if you want him starting at a tackle position in the Sun Belt. We'll see. Guards, you do have some transfers. Noah Portjagan from Florida and Tyler Brown from Colorado. Portjagan's 306, redshirt sophomore. He's a 3-star, hasn't played much. Brown started for Colorado in 2024 and Jackson State in 2022, but he's been banged up in and out of the lineup plenty throughout his college career. He actually began his career with Napier with Louisiana, so there's some familiarity there, which is kind of crazy. That's how long he's been in college. But depth pieces could be Parker Cunningham, Evan Bushong, Jacoby Campbell. I truly don't know. There's very little experience at guard, so it's going to come down to camp battles towards the end of the season. They were at 95th nationally, 6th in the Sun Belt. It just makes sense. You're replacing 4 starters, everyone except your center. There is a ton that could potentially go wrong with this unit coming into the season. Running back, Wayne Knight's gone. He heads to UCLA. Surprise. You lose Jordan Fuller as well, but George Pettaway is back. This is a former 4-star that rushed for 981 yards in 2024, but got hurt last year. I think this is probably your safest player across the whole offense. From there, Northern Arizona transfer Seth Cromwell comes in, projects probably as a complimentary back. He had over 1,300 yards last year, 75th percentile producer in the FCS. Jackson, McCarter, Trayshawn Dyer, deeper players. They also bring in Malachi Fannin Render from Liberty, Nick Herman for Drake. Both of them project as kind of depth pieces, more or less. But optimistic about the run game. This is the number 1 running back unit in the Sun Belt, 51st nationally. Main question is just, can the offensive line hold up in front of them, which is a big one. Defense. Ton of players gone from the defense, including your edge group, Sahir West to UCLA, Aiden Gobar to UCLA, Xavier Holmes, UDFA. Amar Thomas elected to stay. He had 27 pressures last year. He's going to hold on one of the edge spots. And then I don't know who plays the other ones. Keatron Simpson comes in from Lamar. He had 34 pressures over the last 3 years, 78th percentile production. Ernest Willard comes in from Wisconsin, a redshirt freshman 4-star that Wisconsin couldn't keep on their team. But I don't know about the other transfers. I mean, the rest of this group is like Danny Roycer from Indianapolis, Terrell Thomas from Washburn, Mason Parham from Emory, and Henry. Depth is really questionable here. The tackle position, defensive tackle, Terry Lockett's gone. Emmanuel Bush is gone. Andrew Tadeo is gone. Most experience is Michael McMullen. Really good run defender, 291. Only 297 snaps is a bit of a question, but he should at least play a role. It's going to be a rotation. But it's kind of the same thing here. A lot of low-level transfers. Rasheed Lovelace comes in from Nichols. Chikwende Okeke from Western Kentucky, where he didn't play. And Jacoby Wilson from Fort Hays. Kevin Roberts from West Florida. I'm just not really sure here, man. Like, Lovelace is probably your best option. He was an 80th percentile producer in the FCS, 310 pounds. Okeke, he's been all over the place. I'm not sure. 10 snaps to his name. They also have like a Kels Bush, formerly of LSU and Louisiana Tech. He's barely played in college. And now we see him transferring down. This whole defensive line is going to rely on low-level transfers. Injuries could be catastrophic if you incur one to one of the few incumbents you have. We have this 81st nationally, 4th in the Sun Belt. And frankly, I'm a little surprised it ranks this high. Clearly, this is not the best defensive line conference in football. Linebacker, you lose Trent Hendrick to graduation. You lose Drew Spinagati to UCLA. They do have Gannon Weathersby back, who played 539 snaps. Really good run defender. They also have Jaden Studio, from Kent State. Didn't play much last year, transferred over in 2024. He was decent with Kent State prior to that, so there may be some optimism there. Transfers include Nakeem Jackson from Nevada. You have Lathan Crowley from Holy Cross, JT Hooten from West Alabama. Jackson was a good starter with Sacramento State in 2024. Then he went to Nevada last year, was a little more on the average side, but he could potentially be an option. Pretty good on the run game. Crowley, I'm not buying. He was 48th percentile in the FCS. And Hooten's from a D2 school. So there's some serious turnover here again. But because you get back Weathersby, maybe you don't take quite as far as a step back. We have this ranked as the 7th ranked linebacker unit in the Sun Belt, 93rd nationally. The secondary, all right, you lose a lot. Barksdale's at UCLA, of course. A couple graduates from this program, Jacob Thomas, Elijah Culp, Tyler Brown's at Iowa now, Justin Eaglin's at Colorado. You're probably going to look at transfers right away. DJ Kelly comes in from Toledo. Terrence Jones comes in from Fordham. Kelly has 138 snaps. I don't know, man. He was a freshman, so maybe there's some upside. Jones from Fordham, he was a 95th percentile starter in 1 year, so that's good. But outside of that, you're looking at low-level transfers like Demir Minka from Shepherd in youth. I think KJ Flo probably plays the slot. He filled in there for 266 snaps over the last 2 years. But, I mean, that's it. Camden Jennings, Seth Gaithers, Jamal Olford, Rodri McWilliams are all very young players, decent recruits just battling for jobs. They're all in their first or second year. The only experienced depth is Ken Willis, who has 80 snaps. I mean, corner is just a complete toss-up right now with these low-level transfers and just depth pieces. A lot needs to come together. Safety, you have former William & Mary transfer TJ McGill, who played just 86 snaps last year. Chase Reagan, 51 above-average snaps the last 2 years. Probably not options. So you're going to the portal. Javis Minot was a good Texas State transfer. At the very least, he's a 2-year starter, played with Wofford before Texas State. He only allowed 6 catches. But then you go to like Jalen Harley from Findlay. That's a D2 school. I mean, the secondary here is just very, very volatile. Kicker, you do get back Morgan Suarez. He was solid enough. The only misses he had were from 40+. So special teams should be pretty good for James Madison. But as you can see, a lot of questions for this team. So here's where these position groups rank as a whole. We'll bring you to the chart. It's actually still pretty good in the Sun Belt. I know there was a lot of pessimism. We currently have James Madison power rated 68th. They're sitting at an 8.5 win total. It's juice over -130. We have them projected for 6.92 wins. That's a slight step back. And I think it's a little more appropriate than the 8.5 juice over. I have not played anything yet on this, but I think there's a good chance I will. And here's where the schedule comes in so you can kind of see how we got there. This team plays Liberty in week 1, and Liberty is not a bad team in the G6. They had a down year last year, but they've actually made a lot of roster upgrades. We'll get to them in the offseason. We currently have this basically as a pick 'em. They play Wagner, who they're going to murder, and then they play San Diego State, who's a very good G5 team, one of the favorites to potentially win their conference, G16 that is. In conference, it's basically pick'ems across the board. You have two clear favorite spots against Troy and against Georgia State at the bottom of the conference, but there's a logjam at the top. So it's pick'em games across the board. And the other problem with James Madison, their bye is not till week 12. This team plays 11 straight games. That's an incredibly, and some of these are on short weeks, like one of the toughest spots in the schedule without a bye in between. In week 7, you play Georgia State. Okay, that's a team you're clearly favored over, but then you have to go on the road to play App State on a Thursday with 5 days rest. I mean, this is just a tough schedule, flat out. You get Coastal Carolina at the end of the season, who's a good team, improved team. This is just tough for James Madison. And bringing you back a slide, another reason that it's just tough to buy this team is you don't know who's playing QB. Like, they've had Alonzo Barnett for a few years now. They were rock solid, knew exactly what you were getting at QB. Now we have no idea who's going to play the position. You're turning over 4 new offensive linemen, basically new players at every single position. For any coach, this is tough. And now Napier's coming in trying to fill everything out in year 1. Chesney was able to do it. It's a good job. I'm just a little less optimistic than most people, I think, with James Madison heading into this season. We'll probably be looking to potentially back some teams against them. There's a good chance we end up in week 1 on Liberty. It was a lot of continuity, probably on San Diego State in week 3. But that's where we sit with this program for the minute. So checking the chat, looks like nothing new there. We'll go to our next school, one I'm really excited to talk about. Let's get everything set up on the back end for good old North Dakota State. Yes, North Dakota State is entering the Mountain West this year. Should be a fun team to talk about after they just perennially hammer out national championships. All right, got to finesse this just a little bit. There we go. Okay. Pulling it up now. North Dakota State, brand new FCS edition in 2026. They are joining the Mountain West Conference after perennial playoff appearances, national championships. So here's what we can expect for this team making the jump. Kind of where we sit for recruiting and how they just profile in the Mountain West. Put that on the screen for you here. But North Dakota State is coming off another elite season. Honestly surprised they lost in the second round of the FCS playoffs. They got upset by Illinois State by a point. And they finished 12-1. They were undefeated in the regular season. They did win a couple games by single digits, Youngstown State and North Dakota. Both of those teams were ranked in the top 20, so no shame there. They also beat Illinois State in the regular season, who was their only loss. And this team won the national championship in 2024. Their head coach is Tim Polasek. He's entering year 3, 2 successful seasons. Prior to that, he coordinated Wyoming's offense, and he coached offensive line for Iowa from 2017 to 2020. Both pretty impressive jobs. He went 26-3 with North Dakota State when he was there in the FCS. They played one FBS game in that span. It was against Colorado, where they only lost 31-26. Now, that game should have been a little bit wider. Yards per play was pretty big. There was a big gap, 8.8 to 6.5. But they did a lot of the dirty work that Colorado couldn't do. And frankly, he outcoached Deion Sanders. North Dakota State dominated field position in that game. They averaged 54 yards per punt at 7 touchbacks. And then Colorado basically having to go on 80-yard drives to score. They were able to do it enough, but still pretty impressive. Dan Larson's the OC. It's year 2 for him. He previously was an O-line coach, but North Dakota State runs a really weird offense. They're super slow, projected them to be one of the slowest offenses in the country. They use a ton of weird formations, 21 personnel, 22 personnel, fullbacks on the field, multiple tight ends. Sometimes you see them with one receiver. They also run their QB, not quite at the rate as like an Armed Force Academy, but this is a very QB-involved offense on the ground. DC's Grant Olson, he's in year 3. I mean, it's been an awesome defense. They only allowed 20 points or more twice last year, and they were 2 of the best teams. But as this job moves into the FBS, the main question is going to be talent acquisition, because this team, they rank 117th in recruiting over the last 3 seasons, which is honestly better than some FBS programs, or at least teams that were in the FBS over that span. And they rank 125th in the transfer portal. So this is far from like the worst team, But I mean, like recruiting, this team ranks ahead of Air Force, Hawaii, and New Mexico. And honestly, New Mexico probably shouldn't be on this list. New Mexico had a coaching change in 2024 where they were outside the top 200 in recruiting. So let's just say clearly they rank ahead of Hawaii and Air Force. That makes sense. Transfers, they only really rank ahead of Armed Force Academies. They were 167th in that span. But part of the reason they're not taking transfers is this team is elite at retention. This team has 90+% of their recruiting classes going back 3 years. So that's kind of inherent, one of their advantages. I want to kind of see how this changes or doesn't change as we get into their FBS years. But one other advantage they have just as a program is Fargo is not an easy road trip. Now, you can say that about almost every team in the Mountain West. So every time North Dakota State hits the road, they're going to have road trips that are very difficult themselves. But like going to play in Fargo is not easy for any team that heads out that direction. So there are some inherent advantages to this program. The only other thing I'll say on this, it's not easy playing in the Mountain West. Even the changed Mountain West, the teams that are new, that are gone, when we've seen additions in previous seasons, most of them have been in Conference USA. The Mountain West is a straight up better conference than Conference USA. Just getting that out there. But all right, let's switch us over to the depth chart and talk about this team. First things first, they're undergoing a ton of change. I'll be straight up right away. I'm a little pessimistic on North Dakota State, and part of the reason is they just lost a 5th-round quarterback in Cole Payton. He was a 1-year starter, but I mean, he was awesome. He got drafted from the FCS. That's crazy. Now you're going to a 2-star in Nathan Hayes, who does profile to fill this offense pretty well. We've barely seen him throw the ball, so I'm not really sure what to make of him there, but he does profile as an efficient rusher. So he fits the offense where you can run him upwards of 20 times a game. As a passer, you're probably a little bit limited. 9.4 yards per attempt, 2 big-time throws, 2 turnover-worthy plays. That's basically all we've got. Behind him, I have no idea. Trey Drake is an unranked recruit. Xander Smith's a 3-star. They fill out the QB room. Basically, when you put all of this together, the QB room ranks 128th nationally and 8th in the Mountain West. The Mountain West is 10 teams, so they're ahead of a couple others. The redeeming factor is this team has actually put out some NFL talent. Now, no one has succeeded at QB from this program recently. And historically, just like betting on 2-stars to develop into anything worthwhile is like buying a scratch off and expecting to become a millionaire. So I'm kind of in line with this quarterback room being ranked in the bottom 10 of the country. But there's upside, especially because the offense doesn't require the QB to be an elite processor. It's kind of tailor-made for an under-recruited player, similar to the Armed Forces, where you can see players come in and have success because they're not asked to do a lot. But it's not the most talented quarterback room. That just needs to be stated up front. Receiver, not a focal point of the offense. Oftentimes they're playing with 1 or 2 of them on the field at a time. Unfortunately, they're also losing a lot of players at this position. Bryce Lance is gone. He was a 4th-round pick. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with this program, which is incredible. But not only that, they lose Rajon Nelson. They lose Chris Harris. Those are 2 multi-year starters with this team, which basically leaves you with a bare cupboard. The most experienced player on this team is Jackson Williams. He's coming off 283 snaps and 16 catches. Yards per route is 1.7 for him. That's not bad. He's a perimeter receiver. He's your best bet. Outside of that, you're looking at 167 snaps from Mekhi Collins, who is 6'4", 215, or 157 snaps from Logan Conklin, another big-bodied 6'4" perimeter receiver. Collins did play more in 2024, where he had 473 yards. He is also a former 4-star recruit. A lot of players that you see in North Dakota State are either 2-stars, unrecruited at all, or walk-ons. So there is some depth here. It's just not very experienced. Behind these 3, it's probably like an Isaiah St. Romain, who's a 2-star, played 64 snaps. The wide receiver room ranks 131st nationally, 9th in the Mountain West. Again, not a focal point of the offense, so this matters maybe a little bit less than other positions. Tight end, however, this is important. They use multiple tight ends a lot, and they're losing 3 of their top 4 players, including Carson Williams, Trooper Weyermeyer, and Finn Diggins. But redeeming this, Reese Kessel, the 4th tight end they lose last year, he was by far their best. He was averaging 2.7 yards per route last year at 335 yards, an excellent blocker. He's a little bit undersized maybe for the Mountain West at 236, but that was all as a freshman. This is his sophomore season. A lot of optimism here. Behind him, basically complete unknowns. Caden Zenzen, Luke Kocat. We have no idea what we're getting with them. Played a handful of snaps. Both of them were primarily inline options. But again, such a small sample, it's really hard to say. The tight end room projects 5th in the Mountain West, 98th overall. But I think there is some real upside here with Kessel. He showed a lot in a limited sample as a young player. But we're going to need more than just him with how the offense wants to run. The offensive line, they lose 2 of their top 3. They lost center Trent Fraley and Bo Johnson, leaving this group with some questions. There were some injuries that allowed a couple depth pieces to get some snaps, so maybe it's not quite as much of a problem as you might think. But let's start with what they return. You're looking at right tackle Josh Megan back, who is 300 pounds. He's 6'6". One thing about this North Dakota State O-line, they're definitely not small. So this will be his senior season. He was not very good last year. He played 554 snaps. He was a below average run blocker in the FCS and allowed 15 pressures for a team that didn't throw the ball a lot. You're going to need growth from him. Ryan Babbitts is probably going to play left tackle. He filled in for 260 snaps last year. He's another big player, 315. He's 6'5". He was actually pretty good. And Babbitts was a freshman, former 3-star, so a good recruit for this team, one of the better ones. With only 8 pressures allowed, I think there is some upside for him just as a young player taking over one of these tackle jobs. Guards, I think you have 2 incumbents probably playing. You have Nate Tastad, 6'5", 292. He's a 3-star sophomore. A little bit questionable the run game, 18 pressures allowed. Just a young player, probably going to see growth. We often do for this team. Griffin Empey is the other guard, 6'3", 300. He's a 2-year starter, and he was the best player on the team last year on the offensive line. Absolutely elite run blocker, only 5 pressures allowed. And even like a Nate Schnecklock, he's back. He played a bit last year, 6'5", 300 pounds. He was not very good, but fortunately, only 201 snaps. Hopefully they don't even need to use him for that with both their guards projected to play above him. Center, you're looking at Gage Schmidt, played 94 snaps last year. This is a position that actually added a transfer. You're only going to see a couple of these year over year. Kenny Aneen is back. Well, not back. He's coming in from Kansas, 6'5", 310. We don't know exactly where he will play, if he'll play at all. Maybe he's a depth piece, but a Kansas transfer, decent recruit. He could actually shift the offensive line a little bit depending on where he plays. But, I mean, part of the problem with this team, their depth is composed of 0 stars, 2 stars, incoming freshmen. And that's the problem for them this year. This is a developmental unit, and they're very young. I think the offensive line is probably going to be okay. One, because they don't lack size. They recruit a big player. And you're not really, like Larson, the former O-line coach, is now your OC. That brings you some continuity. Dylan Shimura is back for coaching the offensive line again. Even with a lot of these changes, we still have them as a clear middle of the pack to above average unit in the Mountain West, finishing 5th here. So I would tentatively have optimism for this unit overall. I'm not sure if they reached the same heights they did over the previous 2 seasons. Running back, you lose an absolute stud. And Barika Kapinu, he had over 2,000 rushing yards for this team over the last couple seasons. That leaves former Kennesaw State transfer DJ Scott as the clear favorite for carries. He rushed 96 times, 5.2 yards per carry, 4 catches. He actually did drop 2 passes as well, so maybe got to improve as a pass blocker. But then from there, it's basically Cortez LeGrant, 38 snaps, Miles Mitchell, 24 snaps. We have no idea what we're getting. It's been a productive position and probably will remain so because of the way the offense runs. But just looking at pure talent, what is this position group ranked nationally in terms of talent acquisition? They're 135th. They're last in the Mountain West. That's a talent-based ranking, not an output expectation. And frankly, this team has been able to take under-recruited leftover players and turn them into productive overall contributors to the offense. So there should still be some optimism. The running back position is completely unproven. And generally speaking, with North Dakota State, we have them projected to take a step back. That still puts them about middle of the pack in total offensive rankings in this conference, which makes sense. You've got teams like UNLV in this conference that you're probably going to rank behind. You also have teams like Wyoming that you're probably going to rank ahead of. But let's go to defense for North Dakota State, another position group, or I guess side of the ball with a lot that needs to come together. We'll go up one more, get that edge in there. All right. So the edge group, they lose a stud, Toby Anine, to Colorado, a couple other graduates. So now you're looking at senior Kelton McCaslin, probably leading this group, 406 snaps last year. He's a former two-star, very, very good run defender, only 14 pressures, so if there's some improvement to be made, probably as a pass rusher. But behind him, Matthew Stenbroten played 205 snaps. You have Victor Selle, played 192. Both of them good run defenders. They combined for 13 pressures, so definitely as a whole, this group needs to work on their pass rush. But you also have a former Kansas State two-star and Truman Griffith joining the program, is yet to play. Edge group needs a little bit to come together, but this is far from their least experienced group. The interior, you lose Jackson Dutenheffer, but you do return a couple good players here, Keenan Wilson and Logan Larson. Wilson was awesome. I can't believe he returned. Second on the team with 26 QB pressures. Well, Larson wasn't far behind. He was third on the team with 23. That's a lot of interior pass rush juice, and hopefully that makes up for some of the questions on the edge group. It's also a deep unit. Zach Vanterpool played 236 snaps. Elijah Wayne played 196. This defensive tackle room is actually pretty good. On paper, defensive line might be the best unit on the entire team. We have this ranked first in the Mountain West, 49th nationally. I personally think this is easily their best position group. Now, linebacker, much bigger question. You lose a couple players. Nathaniel Stallings on Michigan now, and Logan Kropp, a 3-year starter, departed for this team. So you actually added a transfer to this group from Cornell, Keith Williams. He's probably going to start right away. He was an 83rd percentile producer in the Ivy League, only a 1-year starter though, but pretty good in coverage. From there, their most experienced returners are Oliver Lucht and Peter Haugo. Both of them barely eclipsed 100 snaps. Decent in spot duty overall, but Haugo's a former 3-star. That should help them. Outside of that, you're kind of just looking at Gavin Sell, Chase Brickius, 2 redshirt freshmen with decent recruiting numbers. Probably will have to step up in some capacity. The one wild card with the linebacker unit is Donovan Woolen, and it's not, we don't know what he's going to do. It's just, where do you want to put him on the depth chart? He's a hybrid player, 6'4", 220. Last year, Woolen played 168 snaps in the box and 411 at slot corner. He's listed on the depth chart as a linebacker, but with his experience at slot corner and where he lined up, I tentatively slotted him into that spot. So if you include him in the linebacker ranks, obviously that position group's going to shoot up. If you include him with the defensive backs, that position group will shoot up and vice versa. So currently I have him as a DB. That puts the linebacker room as a whole at 5th in the Mountain West, 104th nationally. Getting to the secondary, so we just mentioned one player, won't belabor that point. Woolen's an elite slot corner. He had 6 PBUs and 3 INTs. So if he continues to play the slot full-time, that position group is going to be locked up. The other spots are basically up for grabs, and we'll go through the candidates. You lost Jaquez Alexander to Delaware, Anthony Chidemi Alfaro, a 2-year starter, Jalen Duffy's on UCF now, and this group could be a mess because, like, DJ Volz transferred in from Saginaw Valley. I have no idea what he's going to give you. Najee Nelson played 181 snaps over 3 years. That's tough. And from there, you're looking at young players. Fortunately, they've recruited corner pretty well. Like, these are 3 stars that are on the team. Kendrick Carter, Damian Devine, Alex Elliott, Marion Moore. I wouldn't be surprised if any of them won a cornerback spot, given that you're looking at Najee Nelson as your most experienced player or like a Saginaw Valley transfer. But that position group, especially the boundaries, completely up for grabs. This is unproven completely. Safety, you have Darius Guyvance and Talon Edey as your most experienced returning players. Guyvance started the last 2 years, pretty average across the board. Edey played 378 snaps, only started 3 games. I think he just needs more experience. But you also have Jalen Crumby. He played over 600 snaps the last 2 years combined. He was pretty below average, though. Safety has not been recruited as well as corner, so it's kind of good for them that they have more experience at this position. But the secondary altogether is at least a concern on paper. Again, I have Woolen projected at corner right now, slot corner, which brings North Dakota State to 3rd in the Mountain West in defensive back rankings. If he truly does play full-time linebacker, this would add even more questions, and this group would fall to like 6th. They're currently 103rd nationally. Kicking game, also a question. Their kicker transferred to Iowa, so now you're looking at Drew Klein. He made 1 field goal and hit 3 extra points. But that one field goal he did make was from beyond 40 yards. So that is positive. But ultimately, as you can see, a lot of questions with North Dakota State as they make the transition into the FBS. So let's dive into the position group as a whole, give you kind of just where, because I was pretty pessimistic on this team, but the rankings hopefully show you shouldn't maybe be quite so pessimistic. Here we go. Offense for me is definitely the bigger question for this team. And again, you're looking at a 2-star playing QB, new running backs, new receivers, 2 new offensive linemen at least, maybe 3. Defense is where this team should really shine. But we currently have North Dakota State power ranked 119th. Their win total is 9.5. It's juiced slightly towards the under, but this is my favorite win total of the entire season. 5.9 is our projection. I could see you projecting this slightly above 6, maybe as high as 6.5. I just can't get there, man. The talent is not on this roster, so you have to entirely rely on coaching to make up this gap, and I'm not sure that's going to be the case. When you look at the schedule for this team, you play Jacksonville State, who's Jacksonville State for a Conference USA team is no slouch. This team is playing for Conference USA titles. The game's at home, which is a big benefit to you, but it's also week 0. Tons of time to prepare. You play Fordham, an FCS team, you should crush them. But week 3, you immediately have to go to Colorado Springs and play Air Force. Okay, you're preparing against the triple option right away. Then you play Sacramento State. You're better than Sacramento State, but that game is on the road. From there, I mean, there's a lot of toss-up games in this conference. I think you're very clear underdogs against UNLV, probably the best team in this conference, and New Mexico, who's vastly improved. But then you've got your clear favorites over Northern Illinois, which makes sense, and Nevada. The rest of it's pretty close. So, I mean, when I have 9.5 win total, I want to lock up wins. Give me the easy wins, the ones we know we can count on. Even if you're a little more aggressive on the North Dakota State projection than I am, these spreads are not going to be crazy. This team has to win 10 games on this schedule. Like, this team's going to Hawaii. They're going to UNLV. They're going to Air Force. They're going to San Jose State. These are massive road trips. I'm not buying it. It's my favorite win total of the entire year. We're playing North Dakota State under 9.5 wins with reasonable juice. Frankly, I can't believe it is this low. So, and while we're on it, just a disclaimer. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, make sure to call 1-800-GAMBLER or text them. But thank you for listening to that. Chat looks pretty quiet. Again, no surprise there. It's very early in the morning. If you are watching, thank you for being here. We are going to discuss one more team, San Diego State, which should be a lot of fun. This team's awesome. We already mentioned them in another breakdown earlier as a mutual opponent. So let's dive right in. Take a drink quick. A lot of talking. All right, San Diego State, 2026. Here is the expectation and a brief look at what happened last year for this team. Ultimately, a pretty good season for this team after a coaching change the year prior. Here's where they sit in terms of recruiting, but I mean, this was an awesome season for them. They were 9-4. Their only losses were to Washington State, Hawaii on the road, New Mexico, a game they should have won. They had a 75% post-game win expectancy. And then North Texas in the bowl, where they didn't have their starting quarterback. The New Mexico game was particularly brutal outside of the fact that they should have won. They missed a field goal that would have had the game locked up. They had 2 turnovers. They also had 3 straight false starts in overtime, which was pretty funny. But, I mean, this team beat Boise State. I mean, they demolished Cal. This was an awesome step forward in year 2 for Sean Lewis after a 3-9 start. And now he's entering year 3. Sean Lewis, I'm pretty optimistic on. He had that weird stint at Colorado where, I mean, Deion kind of ran him out of town. But Sean Lewis, I mean, this guy brought Kent State to a couple bowl games. Kent State is maybe the worst program in the country outside of UMass. I don't know. It's a toss-up. Kent State was going to bowl games with Sean Lewis. I mean, this is incredible. And he comes from an offensive background. He'll probably collaborate with their OC, Matt Johnson, who's also in year 3. He also worked at Kent State. He actually played under Lewis, played quarterback. But last year, San Diego State jumped to 65th in offensive efficiency. They were honestly a little slower than I expected at 27.7 seconds per play. This system is typically playing very, very fast. Now, they were passing only 36% of the time. I think that has to do with Denegal a little bit, their QB. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them increase the tempo a little bit. It's a big no-huddle team. Last year, honestly, I think positive game script just allowed them to slow quite a bit. They do lose their DC. Rob Orich heads to Nebraska. That is a big loss. They promote Demetrius Sumler, who worked as a defensive passing game coordinator for this team. He also has coached corners for a while. So, I mean, you're putting out NFL corners. This should be, I think, a solid enough hire. They were 13th in defensive efficiency last year, so a lot to live up to. This team, they average a recruiting ranking of 79.7 over the last 3 years. That's behind only Boise State and Oregon State in the new Pac-12, Pac-8, I'm going to call them. Call them what they are, not what they want to be. They have a transfer ranking of 80th, which is also behind only Oregon State. So pretty definitively a top 3 job in this conference, even with the additions of other teams and the incumbents they had. I think right now, retention maybe is a slight concern for this team. But they did undergo the coaching change in 2024. So I'm not surprised they didn't retain a lot of that class last year. They're shooting a little above 50%. Hopefully these numbers can improve a little bit just as we get further along into the Lewis tenure. But let's dive into the roster. We'll bring you behind the screen to our depth chart projection for San Diego State. Returning a lot this year after an awesome season last year. Same thing. Got to add some tabs. A couple more tabs. Whoops. Sorry, they were my last team on the sheet. So this is, there we go. Okay. So scroll over just a little bit more and there we are. Perfect. So Denegal is back after getting injured at the end of last year, but should be completely fine. Nothing suggests he's going to miss any time. This is a former Michigan transfer. He's 6'5", 230. Denegal is a little bit limited as a QB, a 59% completion percentage, only just north of 1,800 yards. That was 7.4 yards per attempt. He also had, I mean, the stats weren't awful, but they weren't great either. 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 12 big-time throws, 13 turnover-worthy plays. He's also not the most mobile quarterback either. He took 17 sacks, only 1.5 yards per carry, just 4 rushing touchdowns. So this wasn't the most productive quarterback. They definitely won in spite of him at times, and he played kind of like this efficient game manager role. They do have Burt Emanuel behind him, who's just a dynamic rusher, 8.2 yards per carry, 2 rushing touchdowns. He'll have his packages. Stone Saunders comes in from Kentucky with no experience, just a pure depth piece. Even with the experience, this quarterback room ranked 68th nationally. That's good enough for 4th in this conference. But this team was 114th in just pure passing efficiency last year. They are projected to take a step forward, but I just really question the ceiling with like a Denegal under center. Luckily, Lewis is he's a very good play caller, and their offense as a whole was constructed in a way that kind of maximized his talents and minimized his limitations. So tentatively optimistic after what they were able to do last year with him. Now, wide receiver, this team has a lot of returning experience. Both starters are back, Jordan Napier, Donovan Brown. Napier's a 2-year starter. He was at 3.4 yards per route last year. That's actually pretty crazy. Played in the slot 79% of the time. Now, they threw the ball barely, so 624 yards. That was how he got the 3.4 yards per route. But it's still a good place to start. And then Brown, he's formerly a Syracuse transfer, caught 29 passes last year. He was at 1.7 yards per route, 522 yards. Perimeter receiver 89% of the time. And they bring in an interesting transfer in Justice Lowe. Lowe actually played a bit for Oregon in 2023 and 2024, excuse me, had 21 catches that year. But as Oregon has slowly invested more in NIL, he kind of just got boxed out, which makes sense. He's a 3-star receiver. They're recruiting 5-stars like Decorian Moore and stuff. But now this is kind of more his speed. He should firmly be in this rotation. You also get back some rotational pieces. Jacob Bostic's back from injury, formerly of Iowa and Texas A&M. Nathan Acevedo's back, formerly of Fresno State. Both played a little bit. Wilson Freeney's back after 157 snaps. Jalen Hawkins, 110. Parker Threat, now a sophomore. He played 110. They had a deep transfer in Aoshotomide King from Oklahoma State. Aldrich Doe comes in from Bryan, a 59th percentile FCS transfer. And like Marshall Sanders was a pretty good JUCO receiver. This is a deep unit with some quality at the top. We currently have them projected second in this conference and 47th nationally. This is quietly a really good receiving unit. Denegal needs to maximize it, but you'd rather have good receivers than bad. Getting to tight end, they lose one of their two main guys. Sam Adams is the departure they lose. So now you do return Jackson Ford, who's a former Tulsa transfer. He's mainly a blocker, which is very important in this offense. He only had 10 catches, but he's 6'6", 250, so big frame in this conference. You'll see him out there on main pass blocking situations, run blocking situations. Behind him, I think you see 3-star Ryan Wolfer. He's now a sophomore. Only 2 catches last year. Don't really know what else is behind him. Freshman 3-star like Jack Ellis is a pretty good recruit for this team, but he's also in his first year. So I think it's going to be a lot of Ford. It's going to be a lot of Wolfer, and we don't know behind them. They use some 12, so this is important. The tight end room projects 4th in this conference and 80th overall. This unit's not bad overall with some clear upside. At offensive line, they do lose 3 excellent starters, so there is a lot to replace on the offensive line. They were good too, 47th pass blocking, 51st run blocking. This is how that unit was able to basically pave the way for a near double-digit win season, but they lose Christian Jones, Bayo Kanike, and Ross Ulugalu Masueli. All of them graduated. Your 2 returners are your left guard, Kalen Ellis, who's 350 pounds, and your right tackle, Joseph Borjon, who's 6'8", 340. So let's start with Ellis. He originally played with Syracuse. He was a starter for them in 21 and 22, but then Syracuse increased their NIL investments. He got beat out on the depth chart, transferred down to the G5. Good pass blocker, sub-average run blocker. He was the weakest link on the O-line last year. Now will clearly need a step forward. Borjon was solid, 15 pressures allowed, good run blocking numbers, originally an Arizona transfer, so good recruiting pedigree. But that's left guard and right tackle. So who's going to play your other tackle position? The candidates are all transfers. Mercer Luneski comes from Michigan State, no experience. Dennis Jones comes from Texas Southern. He started the better part of 3 seasons down there, 66th percentile. And then Lawrence, he's inexperienced as well, coming from Indiana, but obviously a good line to play behind. I don't know who wins the job, but probably going to take a slight step back given we're dealing with either transfers coming down or FCS players. The other guard spot probably goes to Isaac Lucas from Ball State. 6'3", 300 pounds. He allowed 10 pressures in the MAC last year, pretty good run blocking numbers. His main challenge are going to come from some 3-star sophomores. He probably wins it. They also have a Western Illinois transfer who was 54th percentile in the FCS, Matthew Montgomery. Not really buying that. So kind of a big question at that guard spot. And then center, it's probably going to come down to either 3-star sophomore Michael LaVille Watkins or transfer Charlton Luneski from Michigan State. Neither of them have more than 34 snaps of experience, but both of them are pretty decent 3-star recruits formerly. Currently, the offensive line ranks 86th, which is a pretty big downgrade from last year, but it still puts them at 3rd in the Pac-12 or Pac-8. But it's a little more tightly jumbled up this year among the offensive line rankings. So there is some upside here. There's also some pretty clear downside given the replacements they're making. One position that is not a question whatsoever is running back, where they have Lucky Sutton and Christian Washington back. Sutton had nearly 1,300 rushing yards last year, 10 touchdowns. 846 of his yards were after contact. If he does need to improve in one area, it's the pass game. He dropped 4 of 11 targets. But man, this guy was an elite pass blocker, probably the best in this conference. He did not yield a single QB pressure. So even if he drops a couple passes, what are you going to do? Take him off the field and get Denegal sacked? Probably not. But Washington, no slouch either. 99 rushing attempts for 564 yards. That's 5.7 yards per carry, 7 catches for him. And then on top of this already efficient backfield, you get Javion Kennard from Colorado State. Probably more of a special teamer at 175 pounds, but maybe someone you could use as a situational guy. This unit projects as the 18th best running back unit in the country, best in the Mountain West. Really good running back room. As long as their offensive line can come together, this should be an elite unit for this team. Going to defense, edge group loses some really good players. Trey White's now at Texas Tech. Ryan Henderson's at A&M. Niles King was a UDFA. You still get back Brady Nassar, who was a really good run defender, 18 pressures as well last year, 6'5", 255, great place to start. Then you have Oregon State transfer Kai Wallen, 6'5", 247, 14 pressures last year, another 250-pound player. He originally began his career with Nebraska. The rest of the position is probably going to be pretty youthful. Redshirt freshman Brian Townsend Jr. was the team's highest recruit last year. This year's freshman class is 2 edges in the top 1,200, Elijah Lash and Robbie Lavatai. Both of them could be potential options for the 2 deep. Main concern is depth, really. I think you're pretty okay at the top, but need to develop those young players, need to cultivate that depth. If there's an injury, it could be pretty tough. Interior-wise, they rotated 4 players, losing only Sam Benjamin. So Malachi Finau's back. He played really good run defense on 375 snaps. Amari Cormier's back. He was even better in run defense, and he had 8 pressures on 319 snaps. Christian Clay was the weakest link, but still a pretty decent player, nearly 300 pounds. Clay and Cormier were from JUCO, so they had some development to do, and it's actually worked pretty well. They also add a couple transfers. Tau Taluili from Portland comes in. He was a 72nd percentile producer in the FCS on 367 snaps. Gabriel Lightfoot comes over from Colorado, where he basically didn't play. He tore his meniscus and missed the entire season. But prior to that, he played 1,148 snaps with Fresno State, so far from inexperienced. Defensive line's not bad. They ranked 70th nationally. Now, this is a pretty good conference for defensive lines. It's actually 6 out of 8 in the preseason, albeit pretty close to 5 and 4. But they do need some young players to ascend, especially to just fill out the 2 deep, the back end of that, especially. You can't just play everyone 100% of the snaps. They'll need some rotational snaps, and that's going to come from youthful players. Linebacker, they lose most of this. Owen Chambliss is gone to Nebraska. Mr. Williams graduated. So now we're looking at really just one experienced returner, Intano Latuli. He played 209 snaps, did get injured last year, and unfortunately it was an ACL in week 10. I don't know, man. Like that's late in the season. November ACL tears, that's where things start to get dicey for the beginning of the regular season or the season entirely. So I don't know if we see him, which is a problem because he was really good. One of their best defenders. To help out, they add Sion Hala from Weber State. He was originally with Boston College, went down to the FCS level. Really good run defender, 66 percentile production, kind of weak in coverage. Jeremiah Hamilton comes over from JUCO. He was the 9th ranked JUCO linebacker in the class, 45 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss. That was as a freshman too. And then Cameron Cooper comes from Western Colorado. He was all conference in whatever conference that is in Division II. But I don't know. It's kind of tricky. He was freshman defensive player of the year in that conference in 2024, which is worth mentioning. Even with all the turnover, we have them ranked 5th in the Pac-8 heading into the season. That's 101st in the country. And that is with projecting Latuli limited. So this potentially as they could be a little better if Latuli starts like week 1 and showing no ill effects of the ACL. We'll see how that goes. Coverage. So at least their coaching staff is intact. And this is a coaching staff that's developed some really good corners like Chris Johnson, 1st-round draft pick. They also lose Phillips and Butler. So at corner, especially now you're down to Josiah Cox after just 222 snaps last year. And he was mainly a slot corner as well. He's going to start this year. But the rest of the group's probably going to be transfers. Caleb Ricks comes over from Idaho. He was really good, 86th percentile in the FCS, 7 PBUs, 1 pick. You get Jason Oliver from Sacramento State, who originally began his career with Colorado. He was a 91st percentile producer in the FCS last year, 7 PBUs, 2 INTs, only 202 yards on 18 catches. You bring in Carson Mommerville from Portland State. He was a 100th percentile producer in the FCS. You bring in Mike Lindsay. He did trail a little bit, 64th percentile. But you probably need 2 of these FCS guys to make the jump. I think one of the probably just under-discussed aspect of FCS transfers coming up to even the G5, like San Diego State, G6, like San Diego State, people either want to assume like, okay, this person was awesome in the FCS, they're going to be awesome here, or they immediately assume this person was in the FCS, they're going to suck in the FBS. It's hard to make this jump. It's not right or wrong one way or the other, but you can use their statistics and try to make a gauge. Like if you have a 91st percentile FCS producer like Oliver, he's probably going to be okay in the FBS. But like Lindsey, a 64th percentile producer, that's where things get a little bit dicier. It's dicey altogether just because the gap is pretty wide. But ultimately, bringing 3 of these guys that were elite FCS producers should make you feel at least okay. There's also some younger players with decent recruiting numbers like Prince Williams, Kaimana Tufaga. They're both in their second year, providing some depth. Unfortunately, you go to safety. Dalasan Staley's back. He was a starter last year, second on the team with 81 tackles, a former Iowa transfer, very good in coverage, 1 pick, 4 PBUs, only 292 yards allowed. He's going to lock down one of the positions. Josh Hunter's probably your second one. He's played 825 snaps over the last 3 years and above average in that time. They also bring in some transfers, Jalen Thomason from Ohio, Solomon Davis from Oregon, and Isaiah Green from Portland State. Thomason split time between nickel and safety. He allowed 41 catches. He's okay. I mean, an Ohio starter. He could start here. Green was the 52nd percentile starter in the FCS. Davis basically hasn't really played, but he comes from Oregon. The secondary was really good last year. They do project to be pretty good this year. They might be the best secondary in the Pac-8. That's where we currently have them. But that's going to come down to the volatility you get from the FCS players. How quickly are they willing or are they ready to produce? Kicking game, Tyler Pursoon comes over from Arizona. Hasn't really played. He's a 3-star recruit, though. So we'll see what he offers them. Special teams a bit up in the air for San Diego State after it was a pretty good unit for them last year. But let's look at what this team basically is offering us as a whole with the position groups. So I'm pretty optimistic on this team. Defensive line, linebacker, probably your 2 biggest concerns. Quarterback still ranking around the middle of the conference, even returning Denegal. We currently have San Diego State power ranked as the 57th team in the country. Win total 6.5, minus 145 towards the over. We have it projected at 8.4. I did play this one already. I think it is worth playing. Not showing quite as much value as like a North Dakota State or some of the other ones we've talked about in previous videos, but still one I think you could potentially take a look at. And there's a couple reasons why. So here's the schedule and what we're projecting. You've got Portland State in week 1, pretty clear win. UCLA in week 2, I think pretty clear loss. James Madison, we just did their team video a little bit earlier. That team is in a complete rebuild. And you have San Diego State at home. I think they win that game. Then you've got Toledo, who, okay, is a pretty good team in the MAC. It's still a MAC team. Biggest problem there is you're going on the road. And then you get into most of conference play. The team you played twice is Fresno State, who I think you're quite a bit better than. Fresno State is basically just a bet on their head coach, Matt Entz, because their roster has deteriorated. And there's an argument, okay, Fresno State is now getting their guys in. If those are their guys, I have a lot of questions because they're very under-recruited. You get Boise at home, which is another big factor in this. The rest of the way, you should be close to double-digit favorites over most teams. Like Colorado State undergoing a lot of change. Washington State, another huge coaching change for them. Utah State's undergoing a lot of change. They lost their OC to Utah, among other things. And when you look at where are they playing their toughest opponents, Texas State, home. Boise State, home. It sets up pretty well for this team. I think this is a bowl team with a bullet, and I think this team has the chance to maybe win this conference. I'm not sure I would be willing to take that right now. Price is kind of in line, a little bit underpriced, I think, for, like winning a conference. I would rather play their win total at 6.5, even with a slight juice at 145. I would be playing this through like 160, 165, or like a even money 7.5 would be okay. Wouldn't like it quite as much. But currently, this number I think is more than comfortable. But that is San Diego State. Just want to talk briefly about what all this stuff was. If you like any of this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. That is immensely helpful for showing YouTube that this is decent content. And if you like the depth charts, the win total projections, the score projections for every single week, that's available in our Discord. The link is in the description, excuse me. It's $50 for the whole summer. You also get player rankings for best ball, written content for almost every single team, discussion with a like-minded community. So it's pretty cool. But I just want to say I really appreciate y'all being here. Those of you that watch, we have to do these really early in the morning. One siren went off in the video, of course, but I appreciate you all very much. Until next time, good luck, everyone. We will see you again soon.